I don't know if you can be less afraid of death exactly. But I think that here's a hypothesis, and this is a Socratic hypothesis. I write about this in my book too, by the way. Maybe if you live your life thoroughly, right? You take use of the advantages, make use of the advantages that are put in front of you, make use of your talents, say yes to things, tell the truth, like stand up and get at it, assuming that you can do that, because some people are very ill and hurt, but assuming you can do that, I think the only way to combat fear of death is to live fully. And I think that might actually work. I kind of wonder, I've talked about this with my father too, who's getting pretty old. I've asked him if, for example, if he could be transformed back into an 18-year-old, knowing what he knows now, would he do it? And he was ambivalent about that. He didn't say no, but he didn't say yes. And we talked about this idea that if you lived your life fully, maybe that would be good enough. Because, I loved having kids, but I don't feel that I would have kids again, because in some sense I've already done that. And so maybe there's a set number of adventures that you have to go on in your life. Let's say you have to be married, you have to have kids, you have to have a career, you have to have friends, you have to have something useful to do with your time outside of work. Those are all things that are covered in the Future Authoring Program, by the way. Maybe if you do all those, it's like, that's good enough. You've had your life and that's enough. I mean, I don't know. 10 years ago, I thought, if I could extend my life radically, then I would. And I'm not so sure about that now that I'm 55. I'm getting older. I kind of have a suspicion that you might come to an end, That's what it looks like. I mean, I don't want that to be soon, but maybe you exhaust yourself in your life, maybe you can, so that there's nothing left of you, really.
Do you worry that your fame traps you into the person that you were before?
Yeah, well, even Elvis became an Elvis impersonator by the time he died.
Yeah, do you fear that you have become a Jordan Peterson impersonator? Do you fear of, in some part, becoming the famous suit-wearing, brilliant Jordan Peterson? The certainty in the pursuit of truth, always right.
I think I worry about it more than anything else. I hope I do. I better.
Has fame to some degree, when you look at yourself in the mirror, in the quiet of your mind, has it corrupted you?
No doubt, in some regard. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to avoid, because things change around you. People are much more likely to do what you ask, for example, right? And so that's a danger, because one of the things that keeps you dying properly is that people push back against you optimally. This is why so many celebrities spiral out of control, especially the tyrannical types that, say, run countries. Everyone around them stops saying, yeah, you're deviating a little bit there. They laugh at all their jokes. They open all their doors. They always want something from them. The red carpet's always rolled out. It's like, well, you think, wouldn't that be lovely? It's, well, not if the red carpet is rolled out to you while you're on your way to perdition. That's not a good deal. You just get there more efficiently. And so one of the things that I've tried to learn to manage is to have people around me all the time who are critics, who are saying, yeah, I could have done that better, and you're a little too harsh there, and you're alienating people unnecessarily there, and you should have done some more background work there. And I think the responsibility attendant upon that increases as your influence increases. And as your influence increases, then that becomes a lot of responsibility. And then maybe have an off day. And here's an example. I've been writing some columns lately about things that perturb me, like the forthcoming famine, for example. And it's hard to take those problems on. It's difficult to take those problems on in a serious manner, and it's frightening. And it would be easier just to go up to the cottage with my wife and go out on the lake and watch the sunset. And so I'm tempted to draw on anger as a motivating energy to help me overcome the resistance to doing this. But then that makes me more harsh and judgmental in my tone when I'm reading such things, for example, on YouTube, than might be optimal. Now, I've had debates with people about that, because I have friends who say, no, if you're calling out the environmentalist globalists who are harassing the Dutch farmers, then a little anger is just the ticket. But then others say, well, you don't want to be too harsh because you alienate people who would otherwise listen to you. It's like, that's a hard balance to get right.
But also maybe anger hardens your mind to where you don't notice the subtle, quiet beauty of the world. The quiet love that's always there, that permeates everything. Sometimes you can become deeply cynical about the world if it's the Nietzsche thing.
Yeah.
Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster.
Yeah.
And if you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you.
Right. But I would say, bring it on. Right? Because that's why I also say, knowing that he's absolutely right, but if you gaze into the abyss long enough, you see the light, not the darkness.
Are you sure about that?
I'm betting my life on it.
Yeah, that's a heck of a bet.
Well, that's...
Because it might distort your mind to where all you see...
is abyss.
Is abyss.
Yeah.
Is the evil in this world.
Well, then I would say you haven't looked long enough. That's back to the...
You're just a limited...
the swords, the flaming swords. It's like... So I said the whole story of Christ was prefigured in that image. It's like the story of Christ, psychologically, is radical acceptance of the worst possible tragedy. That's what it means. That's what the crucifix means. Psychologically, it's like gaze upon that which you are most afraid of. But that story doesn't end there, because in the story, Christ goes through death into hell. So death isn't enough. The abyss of innocent death is not sufficient to produce redemption. It has to be a voluntary journey to hell. And maybe that's true for everyone. There is no more terrifying idea than that, by definition. And so then, well, do you gaze upon that? Well, who knows? Who knows?
How often do you gaze upon death, your own? How often do you remind yourself that this ride ends?
Personally?
Personally.
All the time.
Because you, as a deep thinker and a philosopher, it's easy to start philosophizing and forgetting that you might die today.
The angel of death sits on every word. How's that?
How often do you actually consciously...
All the time.
Notice the angel?
All the time. I think it's one of the things that made me peculiar. When I was in graduate school, I thought about, I had the thought of death in my mind all the time. And I noticed that many of the people that I was with, these were people I admired fine. That wasn't part of their character, but it was definitely part of mine. I'd wake up every morning. This happened for years. Think, time's short, get at it. Time's short, get at it. There's things to do. And so that was always, it's still there. And it's still there I would say, and it's unbearable in some sense.
Are you afraid of it? Like what's
Afraid
your
of
relationship?
death?
Yeah.
I was ready to die a year ago. And not casually. I had people I loved, So no, I'm not very worried about me, but I am very worried about making a mistake.
Yeah.
I heard Elon Musk talk about that a couple of months ago. It was really a striking moment. Someone asked him about death, and he said, just offhand, and then went on with the conversation. He said, that'd be a relief. And then he went on with the conversation. And I thought, well, he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders. I'm sure that part of him thinks, it'd be easier just if this wasn't here at all. Now, he said it offhand, but it was a telling moment in my estimation.
So for him, that's a why live question.
Hmm?
The exhaustion of life.
Yeah.
If you call it life is suffering, but
yeah,
the hardship.
I'm more afraid of hell than death.
You're afraid of the thing that follows.
I don't know if it follows or if it's always here. And I think we're going to find out.
What's the connection between death and hell?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Is there something that needs to be done before you arrive?
You're more likely to die terribly if you live in a manner that brings you to hell. In the future authoring program, which is the one we've done the most research on, so if people do this for 90 minutes badly before they go to college, it'll decrease the probability they'll drop out in the first year by 50%.
That's amazing.
And it works particularly well for people who are most likely to drop out. So a lot of psychological interventions help the good performers do even better and don't help the bad performers that much.
And why do you think it helps them more?
Well, I think the good performers already have a bit of a vision and a plan. Whereas the bad performers, they're really ambivalent about what they're doing because they don't have a plan. And we'll talk more about why this is so important. So if you don't have a reason to do something, and then a reason not to do it comes up, well, then you'll just not do it, because not doing things is real easy. You could just sit there and not do things all day. Doing things takes effort, and so any resistance is likely to, it pushes back against you. And so going to college, it's like, well, why is that difficult? Well, you have to get up, you have to go to your classes, you have to do the assignments, you have to do the reading, you have to write the tests, you have to believe that this path is somehow better than any other path you could be on, and there's innumerable other paths, and that it's better in some fundamental sense than just doing nothing or playing games or being purely hedonic. So there's a lot of, because it's difficult, there's a lot of obstacles. And if you don't have a reason, well, why would you overcome the obstacles? And so what happens when you do the future authoring program is two things. Is first of all, you construe yourself as the sort of person who could have a reason, right? Who could make a vision and impose it on the world.
And how do you do that?
Well, and then second, you actually develop a vision. Okay, so the first thing the program asks you to do, and it's got a biblical element to it in some fundamental sense, although that wasn't so explicit when we first developed it, but I came to realize that later. There's a statement in the Gospels. Christ says to his followers, ask and you'll receive. Knock and the door will open. Seek and you'll find. And you listen to that and you think, no way, man, it can't be that easy. Well, it's that easy. Because let's think about what wanting means. You want something. You want to find, so you'll seek. How hard are you going to seek? You know, maybe you're after the Holy Grail, right? Or you're after the gold in the dragon's lair, or the jewel in the toad's head. You're after something that's guarded by some monstrous figure. You're going to seek? How committed to that are you? And there's a total commitment in that in a fundamental way. It's like you should be humble enough to be open to learning, to radical transformation, to the probability that you're really wrong if you're not finding what you're seeking, and the willingness to sacrifice virtually everything of lesser value for that goal. Otherwise, you do not want it. You did not ask. You are not seeking. You did not knock on the door. Well, this is the development of a vision. Now, you can construe consciousness as the implementer of the vision in the broadest sense. So what we really confront as human beings isn't a deterministic world that runs like clockwork, that the past pushes forward in an algorithmic or deterministic manner. That isn't how the world works. The way the world works is that we confront a horizon of possibility that's not predictable. It's somewhat predictable the way a musical piece is predictable. So it's rule governed, but it's not predictable in a deterministic way. And it's full of possibility and potential. That's actually its nature. It's potential in its nature. And to maximize the quality of our interaction with that potential, we have to impose a vision on it and then pursue the vision. And so when you do the future authoring program, well, that's what you're trying to do, is develop a vision. So here's the first exercise. It's like, okay, here's the deal, all right? You get to have what you need and what you want. maybe even better, you get to have what you need and want if you were treating yourself properly. So imagine, first of all, that you were treating yourself properly because you actually cared for yourself.
Okay, and
that
say you don't.
yeah, well, you
How
don't.
do you help somebody?
Well, you at least ask them to open the door to the possibility that maybe they could. So just imagine that you did. Not that you are, that you could, but that you tried. Think, okay,
and in our self-development, without becoming attached to how these efforts will be received or what they will produce. This detachment doesn't diminish the quality of our action. In fact, it might enhance it. When we are not fixated on outcomes, we can be more present, more attentive, and more aligned with the task at hand. The resonance between Stoicism and Taoism in this aspect is profound. Both philosophies counsel us to let go of the need to control and to trust in the process of life. They remind us that there is a wisdom to the unfolding of events that we, with our limited perspective, cannot fully comprehend, and so they teach us to act with integrity, do our part, and then step back, allowing the world to do its own. These philosophical threads converge on a simple yet powerful truth, that peace comes not from controlling the outcomes of our actions, but from knowing that we have acted rightly to the best of our ability and with good intent. This is the heart of action without force, a heart that beats steadily, calmly, resonating with the timeless wisdom that has guided countless souls through the tumults of history. In applying these principles to our contemporary lives, we find a pathway to a more serene and effective existence. We learn to distinguish between the healthy exertion of effort and the unhealthy obsession with control. We learn to set goals, to strive, and to let go. And in this letting go, we find a new kind of strength, the strength of adaptability, of resilience, and of a deep, abiding harmony with the way things are. It is here, in the union of Stoic resolve and Taoist fluidity, that we discover the art of action without force, a dance with life that is as powerful as it is peaceful, as productive as it is liberating. The Stoic teachings offer profound lessons on the art of letting go, providing us with a guide to living a life that is both purposeful and tranquil. Let's explore in greater depth how the Stoic wisdom can be applied to our modern lives. Epictetus provides a fundamental Stoic lesson, the distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. This discernment is the bedrock of Stoic peace of mind. Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, understanding and embracing this dichotomy can be transformative. Imagine living with the constant recognition that our efforts are best placed on our inner world, the realm of our own decisions, judgments, and reactions. This is where true agency lies. By accepting this, we can conserve our energy, no longer dissipating it in futile attempts to control the uncontrollable. It's like sailing. A skilled sailor doesn't waste time lamenting the direction of the wind, but instead adjusts the sails and steers accordingly. In practical terms, this means focusing on our responses to situations, not the situations themselves. It's about preparing ourselves for the various outcomes of our actions, understanding that success is not in the achievement itself, but in the effort well applied. When we apply this in our lives, we begin to let go of the frustration that comes with disrupted plans and unforeseen obstacles, and we start to move through life with a steadier, more resilient pace. Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, takes this concept further with the doctrine of amor fati, love of one's fate. This profound acceptance goes beyond mere endurance. It's a joyous embrace of all that life offers, both the triumphs and the tragedies. What if we welcomed everything that happened to us as if we had chosen it ourselves? It's a radical shift in perspective, turning every moment into something of value, an opportunity for growth and reflection. This doesn't mean being passive or resigned to suffering. It means seeing the potential in whatever occurs. Marcus's insights can lead us to find beauty in the inevitable cycles of life. He encourages us to look at the whole of which we are a part, to understand our place within the greater order of things. This broader view can free us from the myopia that magnifies our troubles and blinds us to the possibilities contained within them. In embracing our fate, we are not giving up on making things better. Instead, we're committing to move forward with a kind of optimistic pragmatism. It's the practice of taking each moment as it comes and infusing it with our best selves, not because it guarantees a certain outcome, but because it is the most authentic way to live. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. Seneca's musings on time provide a vital Stoic lesson on the importance of prioritization and focus. He prompts us to consider the scarcity of time and the folly of wasting it on the inconsequential. His admonitions against the squandering of time are a call to action for mindful living. We live in an era filled with distractions, where our attention is a currency in high demand. Seneca's advice takes on new meaning when we consider how modern technologies can lead us to inadvertently waste vast amounts of this precious resource. What would it look like if we applied his wisdom today? It would mean a conscientious effort to let go of the trivial, the endless scroll through social media, the preoccupation with the lives of others, the worry over things beyond our control. Instead, we can choose to use our time in pursuits that enrich our souls and better our world. This could involve deepening our relationships, cultivating our talents, or contributing to our communities. It's a call to let go of the superficial and to engage deeply with the essence of life. The Stoic practice of letting go is not about disengagement from the world. Rather, it is about engaging with it more meaningfully. It is not about indifference, but about discernment, the ability to differentiate between what truly matters and what doesn't. It is not about the absence of action, but about purposeful action guided by wisdom. By internalizing the lessons of these Stoic philosophers, we learn to let go of the illusion of control, the resistance to our reality, and the distractions that sap our time. In their place, we cultivate acceptance, purpose, and focus, enriching our lives and allowing us to navigate the world with grace and equanimity. In doing so, we honor the Stoic legacy, turning their timeless wisdom into a living practice that continues to resonate across the ages. Incorporating the philosophy of non-force into the minutiae of daily life is akin to learning a new language, the language of deliberate calmness and measured response. It is a subtle art that requires practice, patience, and a conscious recalibration of our habitual reactions. We will traverse practical strategies that weave the threads of non-force into the fabric of everyday existence, allowing its philosophy to permeate our actions and interactions. First, let us consider the morning ritual, a daily tableau for setting the tone. Instead of leaping into the day with a frenzy of activity, we might begin with a moment of stillness. This could be a short meditation, a few minutes of deep breathing, or simply sitting with a cup of tea, anchoring ourselves in the present. The objective is to cultivate a space where we can acknowledge the day's potential without the compulsion to steer it forcibly. Moving into the day, one might adopt the practice of mindful pauses. Before commencing a new task, entering a meeting, or even responding to an email, we take a brief pause to assess our state of being. Are we acting out of compulsion or choice? Are we about to force an outcome, or are we prepared to do our best and let the results unfold? These mindful pauses become checkpoints that reinforce the discipline of non-forcing. Another exercise lies in the realm of communication. When engaging in conversation, we can practice active listening, giving space to the other person's words and resisting the urge to impose our narrative or desired conclusion. This creates a dynamic where dialogue flows naturally, without the coercion of preconceived agendas. To build the discipline of non-forcing, we can also engage in reflection at the end of each day. A journal can serve as a powerful tool here, allowing us to revisit our actions and attitudes. Did we push too hard in any situation? Could we have approached a problem with a lighter touch? This reflection is not about self-reproach, but about learning and recalibrating for the days ahead. In terms of habits, we might cultivate the art of strategic yielding. This involves recognizing moments when resistance is less effective than flexibility. Like the willow tree that bends in the storm but does not break, strategic yielding is about identifying the strength in adaptability. This could mean deferring a decision when emotions are high, yielding the floor in a debate to gather more information, or simply opting to take a walk when a work problem seems insurmountable. Furthermore, we can embrace practices that encourage a letting go mindset, such as yoga or tai chi, which synchronize movement and breath, teaching us to move with intention but without unnecessary tension. The physical act of releasing tension in the body can be a metaphor for releasing psychological tension and the need to control. Now, let us turn our attention to the balancing act of effort with surrender. It is a dance between doing and being, exerting and resting. The key lies in our focus. When we concentrate on the process, the doing, rather than the outcome, we find a rhythm that honors both effort and ease. We work wholeheartedly, yet we remain inwardly detached from the fruits of our work. In practice, this might look like setting goals and working toward them with dedication, but regularly reminding ourselves of the larger context. Our worth is not defined by our successes or failures. It could also involve setting boundaries around our work, acknowledging that rest and recuperation are as vital as the work itself. Moreover, in the ebb and flow of professional life, we can apply the principle of non-force by being discerning about our battles. Not every situation requires our intervention. Sometimes the most strategic move is to step back and allow situations to resolve themselves, conserving our energy for matters where we can truly make a difference. To marry the notion of effort with surrender, we can adopt a twofold approach: proactive patience and reactive resilience. Proactive patience is the effort put forth in planning, preparation, and execution, coupled with the patience to let events unfold at their own pace. Reactive resilience is the capacity to bounce back from unexpected outcomes, using them as opportunities for growth rather than reasons for despair. The integration of non-force into our daily lives is not an abandonment of action or ambition. It is instead a more sophisticated engagement with both. It calls us to act with intention, guided by wisdom rather than whim, influenced by purpose rather than impatience. As we embody these practices, the philosophy of non-force transcends concept and becomes lived experience, a serene confluence of effort and surrender that shapes a life of depth, balance, and fulfillment. As we reach the conclusion of our journey together through the philosophy of non-force and the art of letting things happen, let us take a moment to reflect on the ground we've covered. We embarked on this voyage guided by the wisdom of the Stoics, learning to discern between effort and force, understanding that while we can plant seeds with intention, the blossoming occurs not at our command, but in its own time and way. We recognize the telltale signs of forcing, stress, anxiety, and burnout, and contrasted these with the serene strength that comes from working in harmony with nature's rhythms. Our exploration took us through history, walking in the footsteps of Zeno and other Stoics who exemplified the virtue of acceptance in the face of life's unpredictable tempests. We considered the lessons from their experiences and the modern-day relevance of an unforced approach to life's challenges. The concept of Wu Wei from Taoism entered our conversation, enriching our understanding of action without attachment, and we found common ground between these ancient philosophies, realizing that effort can be exerted without the tension of force. We delved into the psychological effects of letting go, appreciating the mental health benefits that unfold when we cease to strain against the current of existence. We discussed how letting go has the power to reduce stress and improve our overall well-being, with research and personal anecdotes bolstering this transformative perspective. In the realm of practical application, we provided tools for integrating non-force into daily life. We spoke of mindful pauses, reflective journaling, the practice of active listening, and the cultivation of strategic yielding. We examined the intricate dance between effort and surrender, encouraging a focus on the process over the outcome, proactive patience, and reactive resilience. And now, as we wrap up our dialogue, it's my hope that you feel inspired to practice the art of letting things happen. The path is laid out before you, not as a rigid track to be followed with forceful strides, but as a meandering trail to be walked with a sense of wonder and openness. Each step is an opportunity to apply the principles we've discussed, to experiment with the space between action and allow, and to discover the liberating power that comes from an inner posture of release. As you go forth, remember that this is not a call to passivity, but an invitation to a more profound engagement with life. It is about aligning with the flow of events, rather than colliding with them. It is the art of shaping without forcing, of influencing without overpowering, and of living with a deep and abiding sense of peace that comes from the recognition that, while we play our part, the universe has its rhythms, and wisdom lies in moving with them, not against them. Embrace this art of letting things happen and watch as your life transforms, not because you exerted force upon it, but because you allowed it to unfold in its own beautiful, unpredictable, and perfect pattern.